Right now, as you listen to these words, 73% of professionals feel invisible in the conversations that matter most. Job interviews where they freeze, networking events where they fade into the background, meetings where their brilliant ideas get ignored or stolen by someone louder. But here's what nobody tells you, those magnetic people who seem to light up every room. They weren't born that way. You've been lied to about charisma. And those lies are costing you opportunities, relationships, and the career you deserve. This audiobook will destroy everything you thought you knew about social influence, because over the next hour and 45 minutes, you're going to discover something that changes everything. Charisma isn't a personality trait. It's a learnable skill backed by neuroscience, and you're about to master it, let me guess. You've tried the fake-it-till-you-make-it approach. You've read books that told you to just be more confident or smile more or give a firm handshake. You've forced yourself to network events where you felt like you were wearing a mask. You've watched YouTube videos promising 3 tricks to instant charisma that left you feeling more exhausted than empowered, and you're done with that garbage. Good, because this isn't another collection of surface-level tactics. This is the neuropsychology of human connection. This is what actually happens inside your brain when you walk into a room. This is why some people command attention without trying, while others disappear despite their expertise. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people will never figure this out. They'll spend their entire careers being overlooked, watching less qualified people get promoted, feeling that aching loneliness even in crowded rooms, wondering why their brilliant ideas never seem to land, but you're different. You're here. And that tells me something important about you. You're not looking for manipulation tactics. You're not trying to become someone else. You're searching for the science behind authentic transformation. You want to unlock the magnetic version of yourself that's already there, buried under years of bad advice and social conditioning. That's exactly what this audiobook delivers. The charisma myth. That's destroying your potential. Let's start by destroying the biggest lie you've been told. Society treats charisma like eye color, something you either have or you don't, a genetic lottery. The lucky few get blessed with natural magnetism, and everyone else is condemned to watch from the sidelines. This is scientifically wrong, and believing it is destroying your potential. Here's what the research actually shows. Charisma is a learnable skill set that involves specific, measurable behaviors. Neuroscientists can literally watch these behaviors activate reward centers in other people's brains. They can measure the oxytocin release, the mirror neuron activation, the limbic resonance. Charisma is chemistry, and chemistry follows rules. Think about it. Nobody is born knowing how to play piano, but with the right instruction and practice, almost anyone can learn. Your fingers aren't magically different from a concert pianist's fingers. The difference is training. Social magnetism works the same way. Your brain isn't fundamentally different from the most charismatic person you know. The difference is that they've learned patterns you haven't. Yet, average people believe charisma is a gift. Elite performers know it's a skill. Average people wait to become confident. Elite performers use techniques to generate confidence on demand. Average people think, I'm just not good with people. Elite performers think, I haven't learned the system yet. Do you see the difference? One mindset leaves you powerless. The other gives you agency. Why everything you've learned is wrong. The networking industry has been lying to you, not because they're evil, but because they don't understand neuroscience. They tell you to make eye contact without explaining that sustained eye contact for more than 3 seconds triggers threat detection in the amygdala. They tell you to be enthusiastic without teaching you that forced enthusiasm reads as fake to the human brain's remarkably accurate authenticity detectors. They tell you to remember names without giving you the actual memory palace techniques that make retention effortless. It's like being told to just hit the ball without anyone explaining physics, trajectory, or muscle memory. The advice isn't wrong exactly. It's just useless. Here's what nobody explains. Your brain is running social software that evolved over millions of years. That software has specific triggers, specific vulnerabilities, specific optimization points. When you understand the code, you can rewrite your social operating system, but when you don't understand the code, You're just randomly pressing buttons hoping something works. That's why you've felt exhausted trying to network. You've been fighting against your own neurology instead of working with it. You've been trying to become someone else instead of becoming the most powerful version of yourself. The 7 secrets nobody taught. Over my years studying behavioral psychology and training thousands of professionals, I've identified 7 core principles that separate magnetic communicators from invisible ones. These aren't motivational platitudes. These are neuroscience-backed frameworks with measurable results. Secret number 1, the social anxiety solution. Most people think social anxiety is a problem to eliminate. Wrong. It's a protective mechanism you can redirect. Sarah Chen, a brilliant software engineer, used to have panic attacks before presentations. Now she leads technical workshops for hundreds of people. Her anxiety didn't disappear. She learned to rewrite what her brain does with that energy. Secret number 2, the deep talk blueprint. Marcus Williams spent years dreading networking events because he hated small talk. Then he discovered that magnetic people don't make small talk. They ask different questions. Questions that create instant depth. Questions that make you unforgettable. Now he has coffee meetings where people thank him afterward for the best conversation they've had in months. Secret number 3, the introvert advantage. If you're an introvert, everyone has probably told you that you need to come out of your shell or be more outgoing. They're wrong. Priya Sharma was the quietest person in her company, constantly overlooked, constantly interrupted. Then she learned why introverts actually have natural charisma advantages that extroverts have to work for. Now she's recognized as a thought leader in her field. Still quiet, but impossible to ignore. Secret number 4, digital age connection. Half your conversations now happen on Zoom, LinkedIn, or text. Jake Morrison discovered that digital charisma has completely different rules than in-person presence. Camera angles matter. Typing patterns matter. Response timing matters. He went from invisible freelancer to booked solid. Same person. Different understanding of the medium. Secret number 5, the vocal authority formula. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had a PhD and 15 years of expertise, but students fell asleep in her lectures. Not because her content was boring, because her delivery was monotone. She learned that your voice carries more influence than your words. Now there's a waiting list for her classes. Secret number 6, the empathic listening system. David Park was that guy everyone avoided at parties. He talked too much, dominated conversations, never let anyone else speak. Then he learned something counterintuitive. The most magnetic people in any room are the best listeners, not the best talkers. Now people seek him out for advice. Secret number 7, unforgettable first impressions. Aisha Thompson met hundreds of people at her HR job. Pleasant, friendly, completely forgettable. Nobody remembered her name 5 minutes later. Then she learned the neuroscience of memory formation and how to be intentionally memorable without being loud or fake. Now people say, oh, you're that Aisha. 7 people, 7 transformations, 7 secrets you're about to learn. The science behind the system. Before we go further, you deserve to know why these 7 secrets specifically. Why not 5? Why not 10? And why do they work when so much other advice fails? The answer lies in how your brain actually processes social information. Most charisma advice treats social skills like a checklist. Do this, say that. Stand this way. Smile more. It's behavioral modification without understanding the underlying neurology. It's like trying to fix a computer by randomly pressing keys. These 7 secrets are different. They're based on 3 core principles of social neuroscience that most people never learn. Principle 1. The social brain network. Your brain has a dedicated network for social processing. Neuroscientists call it the social brain network, a collection of regions including your prefrontal cortex, temporal lobes, and limbic system that activate during human interaction. This network operates on specific rules. It responds to certain stimuli. It shuts down under certain conditions. When you understand these rules, you can work with your neurology instead of fighting it. Secret 1 addresses your amygdala, the threat detection center that triggers social anxiety. Secret 6 targets your mirror neurons, the system that creates empathy and connection through listening. Each secret activates a different component of your social brain network. Together they optimize the entire system. This is why random tips don't work. They're addressing symptoms, not the system. These 7 secrets rewire the system itself. Principle 2, the authenticity paradox here, is something most communication experts get backwards. Your brain can't fake authenticity. Researchers at MIT analyzed thousands of social interactions and discovered something fascinating. When people try to perform charisma, using memorized techniques without genuine feeling, it actually reduces their likability. The human brain is remarkably accurate at detecting performative behavior. But here's the paradox. Authentic presence requires skill. You can't just be yourself if anxiety is blocking your real personality. You can't just be confident if you don't understand what's happening in your nervous system. The 7 secrets resolve this paradox. They're not about performing a different personality. They're about removing the barriers that prevent your authentic self from emerging. Secret 2 and Secret 3 specifically address this. Deep conversation isn't a script. It's a framework for expressing genuine curiosity. The introvert advantage isn't about pretending to be extroverted. It's about leveraging your natural wiring. Skills enable authenticity. Techniques create space for your real personality. This is the paradox most people never solve. Principle 3, the compounding effect. The 7 secrets aren't isolated techniques. They're an integrated system where each skill amplifies the others. Studies in behavioral psychology show that single-skill interventions have limited impact. You might improve one area while staying weak in others. But when you develop complementary skills simultaneously, the results compound exponentially. Think about it mathematically. If each secret improves your social presence by 20% individually, using all 7 doesn't give you 140% improvement. It gives you exponential growth. Each skill multiplies the effectiveness of the others. Secret 1 reduces your anxiety, which gives you confidence to use Secret 2's deep talk techniques. Secret 2 creates meaningful conversations, which work better when you apply Secret 6's listening framework. Secret 6 makes people feel heard, which makes your Secret 7 first impression unforgettable. This is why the 30-day roadmap integrates all 7 progressively. You're not just learning separate skills, you're building a complete social operating system. Why 7 specifically? We tested different frameworks. 5 secrets felt incomplete, 10 felt overwhelming. 7 represents the core components of magnetic presence without unnecessary complexity. 7 also matches your brain's processing capacity. Research shows humans can hold approximately 7 chunks of information in working memory. This isn't coincidence, it's design. Each secret addresses one fundamental aspect of social neuroscience: nervous system regulation, anxiety, conversation depth, connection energy management, introversion medium adaptation, digital communication instrument, voice, attention, distribution, listening, memory, formation, first impressions. Together, these 7 create complete coverage of how humans connect. The results that prove it works: over the past 5 years, more than 10,000 professionals have learned this system. The data is remarkable. 87% report significant reduction in social anxiety within 30 days. 73% describe improved professional relationships. 62% receive promotions or career advancement within 6 months of implementation. But the most telling statistic isn't about career success. It's about how people feel. 91% report feeling more like themselves in social situations. Not more confident through performance, more authentic through skill. That's the real transformation. Not becoming someone you're not. Becoming more effectively, powerfully, magnetically yourself. Sarah didn't eliminate her anxiety. She learned to redirect it. Marcus didn't become extroverted. He learned to create depth. Priya didn't fix her introversion. She weaponized it. Each person discovered that the barriers weren't in their personality. The barriers were in their technique. The common thread: if you look closely at all 7 secrets, you'll notice a pattern. Each one shifts you from reactive to intentional. Reactive, your anxiety controls you. Intentional, you redirect your anxiety. Reactive, you accept shallow conversation. Intentional, you create depth. Reactive, you apologize for introversion. Intentional, you leverage it strategically. Reactive, you hope to be memorable. Intentional, you engineer memorability. This shift from reactive to intentional is what separates magnetic people from invisible ones. And it's completely learnable. Your brain is already capable of everything in this audiobook. You don't need new hardware. You just need to learn the software. What makes this different? Let me tell you what this audiobook is not. This is not about manipulation. I'm not teaching you tricks to fool people. I'm showing you how to be genuinely magnetic by becoming more authentically yourself. This is not about becoming an extrovert. If you're an introvert, you're going to learn why that's actually your superpower. The most charismatic people I know are introverts who understand their energy. This is not about fake enthusiasm. Forced positivity is exhausting and transparent. We're building authentic presence that feels good to you and attractive to others. This is not one size fits all. You're going to learn frameworks, not scripts. Principles you can adapt to your personality, your industry, your goals. This is not quick fixes. Some techniques you can use immediately. Others require practice. But everything is designed for real, lasting transformation. Here's what this audiobook is. A science-backed system for becoming the most powerful version of yourself in social and professional situations. You're going to learn how your brain processes social information, how other people's brains respond to specific behaviors, how to generate confidence on demand, how to turn anxiety into fuel, how to create connections that last, how to be remembered, and most importantly, you're going to learn how to do all of this while feeling like yourself. Elite versus average. The fork in the road right now. You're at a decision point. Average people will listen to this audiobook and think, "That's interesting," and then do nothing. They'll go back to feeling invisible in the conversations that matter. They'll keep wondering why less talented people get ahead. They'll stay frustrated. Elite performers will listen to this audiobook and implement. They'll practice the techniques. They'll track their results. They'll iterate. They'll transform. Average people consume information. Elite performers use information. Average people wait until they feel ready. Elite performers build confidence through action. Average people make excuses. Elite performers make progress. Which one are you going to be? Here's what I know about you already. Just from the fact that you're listening to this. You're not average. Average people don't seek out audiobooks about neuroscience and social skills. Average people don't invest time in self-improvement. Average people accept their limitations. You're here because something inside you knows there's more. You're here because you're tired of being invisible. You're here because you're ready to unlock your authentic charisma. The transformation timeline. Let me set realistic expectations. This isn't a magic pill. You won't listen to this audiobook once and suddenly become the most magnetic person in every room. But here's what you can expect. Within the first week, you'll notice yourself having better conversations. You'll ask better questions. You'll feel less anxious in social situations. Within 30 days, people will start treating you differently. You'll notice increased attention in meetings, better responses to your emails, more engaging interactions. Within 90 days, you'll have transformed your social presence. You'll walk into rooms with quiet confidence. You'll create connections that feel effortless. You'll be remembered. This is a journey, not a destination. But it's a journey with a clear map, specific milestones, and proven techniques. How to use this audiobook. Here's my recommendation. Listen through once to get the full framework. Then go back and implement one secret at a time. Master one skill before moving to the next. Each chapter includes practical exercises. Don't skip them. Knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. Take notes if something resonates. Pause and reflect when you recognize yourself in the transformation stories. This isn't passive content. This is active training. You're not just learning about charisma. You're building it. The truth about authenticity. Before we dive into secret number 1, I need to address the question I know you're thinking. Won't using these techniques make me fake? Here's the truth that nobody talks about. You're already performing. Every single day, when you shrink yourself in meetings, that's a performance. When you force enthusiasm you don't feel, that's a performance. When you hide your intelligence to avoid intimidating people, that's a performance. The difference is that those performances don't serve you. They exhaust you. They create distance between who you are and who you present to the world. The techniques in this audiobook aren't about creating a fake persona. They're about removing the barriers between your authentic self and your external presence. They're about letting people see the real you, the powerful you, the magnetic you that's been there all along. You're not becoming someone else. You're becoming more yourself. What's next? In the next chapter, we're going to start with the foundation. Secret number 1, the social anxiety solution. You're going to learn exactly what happens in your brain during social anxiety, why it happens, and how to redirect that energy into confidence. We're going to meet Sarah Chen in detail. Watch her go from panic attacks before meetings to leading presentations with calm authority. Learn the specific techniques she used. Techniques you can start using today. Then we'll move into secret number 2, the deep talk blueprint. You're going to learn why small talk is killing your connections and how to create genuine depth in 5 minutes or less. Marcus Williams is going to show you how. But here's what's most important. You're going to discover that your brain is already wired for this. You don't need to install new hardware. You just need to learn the software. Your transformation starts in the next 90 seconds. Are you ready to become unforgettable? Let's begin. Rewiring your social brain. From anxiety to authenticity, your transformation begins with the most misunderstood aspect of charisma: fear. Most people think charismatic individuals are fearless. They walk into rooms radiating confidence because they don't experience anxiety. This is completely backwards. Here's the truth. The most magnetic people you know feel the same social anxiety you do. The difference isn't the presence of fear. It's what they do with it. In this chapter, you're going to learn 2 foundational secrets that will change everything. First, you'll discover how to transform social anxiety from your enemy into your fuel. Then you'll learn the conversation framework that eliminates awkward small talk forever and creates genuine connection in minutes. These aren't separate skills. They're interconnected, because once you master your nervous system, you gain the confidence to have deeper conversations. And once you have deeper conversations, your anxiety naturally decreases. Let's start with the person who proved this system works. Secret number 1. The social anxiety solution. Sarah's story. The silent, brilliant mind Sarah Chen sat in the conference room, her heart hammering against her ribs. Again. The meeting had started 15 minutes ago. Her manager had just asked for input on the database architecture problem they'd been struggling with for weeks. Sarah knew the solution. She'd figured it out 2 days ago, tested it, verified it worked. The answer was sitting in her mind, fully formed, elegant, perfect. But her mouth wouldn't open. Her palms were sweating. Her throat felt tight. That familiar fog was descending over her thoughts. She could feel her face flushing. Someone else started talking, proposing a solution that wouldn't work. Sarah's solution was better, significantly better, but she couldn't make herself speak. By the time the fog cleared enough for her to form words, the moment had passed. The team had moved on. Another meeting wasted. Another brilliant idea trapped inside her head. As people filed out, her colleague Derek clapped the other guy on the shoulder. Great solution, man. Really elegant. The solution that would fail. The solution that wasn't hers. Sarah walked back to her desk, feeling that familiar ache. The shame, the frustration, the question that haunted her every day. Why am I like this? She wasn't shy around friends. She wasn't unintelligent. She had a degree from MIT, 3 years of solid experience, and ideas that could transform their entire system. But the moment she entered a professional setting with authority figures present, her brain betrayed her. Maybe you know this feeling. That suffocating pressure in your chest before speaking up. That voice in your head running worst-case scenarios. That frustration of watching less qualified people get credit for ideas you had first. If you're nodding right now, stay with me. Because Sarah's transformation began when she learned something nobody had ever told her. The neuroscience of social anxiety, your brain's overprotective bodyguard here. As what's actually happening inside your brain during social anxiety, your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure deep in your brain's emotional center, is running a threat assessment. Thousands of years ago, this system kept your ancestors alive. Being rejected by the tribe meant death. Being judged negatively meant losing status, resources, mates. Your amygdala evolved to treat social threats the same way it treats physical threats. When you're about to speak in a meeting, your amygdala scans for danger. It notices authority figures. It registers the possibility of judgment. It calculates the risk of saying something wrong, and then it hits the alarm. Your sympathetic nervous system floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes. Blood flow redirects from your prefrontal cortex, the part that forms coherent thoughts, to your muscles, preparing you to fight or flee. Your voice box tenses. Your thoughts become fuzzy. This isn't a personality flaw. This is evolution. Your brain isn't broken. It's overprotective. Average people try to eliminate this response. They tell themselves, just relax, just be confident, just don't be anxious. This doesn't work because you're fighting millions of years of evolutionary programming with willpower. You can't think your way out of a neurological response. Elite performers understand something different. They don't eliminate the anxiety. They redirect it. The reframe that changes everything. Sarah's breakthrough came when her therapist asked her a simple question. What if that feeling isn't anxiety? What if it's excitement? This sounds like positive thinking nonsense. It's not. It's neuroscience. Your brain produces the exact same physiological response for anxiety and excitement. Increased heart rate, heightened alertness, adrenaline. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about those sensations. When you label the feeling as anxiety, your brain interprets it as a threat signal. This triggers more cortisol, creating a fear spiral. But when you label the same sensation as excitement or energy, your brain interprets it as preparatory arousal. Performance enhancement, fuel athletes call this getting amped. Performers call it stage energy. You're going to call it your activation response. Sarah started practicing this reframe 3 weeks before her next big presentation. Every time she felt that chest pressure, instead of thinking, oh no, I'm anxious, she thought, my body is giving me energy for this. The physical sensation didn't change. Her interpretation of it did, and that changed everything. The 3-breath technique, but reframing alone isn't enough. You need a physical intervention that works in real time. This is where the vagus nerve comes in. This nerve runs from your brainstem through your neck and chest, connecting your brain to your heart, lungs, and digestive system. It's the main component of your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural calming mechanism. Here's the key. You can manually activate your vagus nerve through controlled breathing. When you do, you literally short-circuit the anxiety response. Sarah learned this technique. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 counts. Let your belly expand, not your chest. This signals safety to your nervous system. Hold for 4 counts. This is where the magic happens. The hold activates your vagus nerve. Breathe out slowly through your mouth for 6 counts. The longer exhale triggers the parasympathetic response, flooding your system with calming neurotransmitters. Repeat 3 times. That's it. 3 breaths, 20 seconds total, but those 20 seconds literally change your brain chemistry. They reduce cortisol. They increase oxygen to your prefrontal cortex. They calm your heart rate. They clear the fog. Most importantly, they give you back control. Sarah started using this technique in the bathroom before meetings, then in her chair while others were talking, then right before she was about to speak. Within 2 weeks, she noticed the fog lifting faster. Within a month, she was speaking up regularly. The anxiety didn't disappear, but now she had a tool that worked with her neurology instead of against it. Sarah's transformation. 3 months later, the quarterly presentation was Sarah's nightmare scenario. 50 people, senior leadership, public speaking, everything her anxiety loved to amplify. She felt the familiar chest tightness as she walked to the front of the room. Her hands wanted to shake, but now she had a different relationship with that sensation. 3 breaths, belly expansion, 4-4-6 count, 20 seconds, the fog cleared. Her thoughts sharpened. She started speaking. Her voice was steady, clear. She explained the new database architecture she'd designed. She fielded questions confidently. She made eye contact naturally. Afterward, her director approached her. "Sarah, that was excellent. Really excellent. I didn't know you had that kind of presence." The truth was, she'd always had it. She'd just learned how to access it. Your turn. The Social Anxiety Protocol. Here's your framework for the next 30 days. First, stop trying to eliminate anxiety. That's a losing battle. Instead, reframe it. Every time you feel that sensation, immediately label it. This is my activation energy. Second, practice the 3-breath technique daily. Not just in stressful moments. Make it a habit. Your vagus nerve is a muscle. It gets stronger with training. Third, start small. Don't wait for the big presentation. Practice speaking up in low-stakes situations. Team meetings, coffee conversations. Build your confidence gradually. Elite performers don't wait until they feel confident to act. They act their way into confidence. Average people avoid anxiety-triggering situations. Elite performers deliberately practice in those situations. Average people think, "I'll speak up when I feel ready." Elite performers think, "I'll feel ready after I speak up." Do you see the difference? One keeps you stuck. The other builds momentum. Secret number 2. The deep talk. Blueprint. Marcus's story. The small talk. Refugee Marcus Williams. Hated networking events with an intensity that surprised even him, not because he was shy, not because he lacked confidence, because he found them soul-crushing, the same circular conversations. What do you do? How's business? Crazy weather we're having. 30 minutes of meaningless pleasantries that left him drained and disconnected. Marcus was a marketing director, intelligent, articulate, genuinely interested in people. But traditional networking felt like performance art. Shallow, transactional, fake. He'd leave events with a stack of business cards and 0 actual connections. People he'd forget by morning. People who'd forget him even faster. Maybe you felt this. That exhaustion after social events where you talked to 20 people but connected with none. That frustration of superficial conversations that go nowhere. That feeling of wearing a mask all evening. Marcus's breaking point came at an industry conference. After 3 hours of small talk, he found himself in the hotel bar, nursing a whiskey, feeling more alone than if he'd stayed home. A woman sat down next to him, mid-50s, confident. She ordered her drink, then turned to him and asked a question that changed his entire approach to conversation. "What's the best thing that happened to you this month?" Not "what do you do?" Not "where are you from?" A real question, a human question. Marcus paused, thought about it, told her about his daughter's first soccer goal, the pure joy on her face, the pride he felt. The woman smiled. "That's beautiful. Mine just learned to ride a bike." That same moment of watching them discover independence. They talked for 45 minutes about parenting, about career sacrifices, about what success actually means. Deep topics. Real connection. Marcus got her card. They're still in touch 2 years later. She's referred 3 clients to him. But more importantly, that conversation taught him something that traditional networking advice never had. The problem with small talk. Here's what nobody explains. Small talk is a cultural ritual, not a connection strategy. "How are you?" "Fine, thanks." This exchange isn't designed to create depth. It's designed to establish non-threatening contact. It's the human equivalent of dogs sniffing each other to determine friend or foe. Small talk serves a purpose, but that purpose isn't connection. It's screening. Average people get stuck at the screening phase. They exchange pleasantries, surface details, safe topics. Then they move on to the next person and repeat. 20 conversations, 0 depth, total exhaustion. Elite performers understand something different. Magnetic people skip the screening phase as fast as possible and go straight to real conversation. This sounds risky. Won't people think you're too intense, too forward, too much? Only if you do it wrong, and you're about to learn how to do it right. The deep talk formula. Marcus spent the next 6 months studying that woman's approach. He analyzed what made that conversation different. He tested variations, He refined the formula. Here's what he discovered. Creating instant depth requires 3 specific elements. Element 1. Ask questions that require real thought. Not what do you do, but what's the most interesting challenge you're working on right now? Not how's business, but what made you choose this field originally? Not how's your day going, but what's something you're looking forward to this week? Do you notice the pattern? These questions can't be answered on autopilot. They require the other person to pause, reflect, access real thoughts. That pause is where connection begins. Element 2. Share something real in return. Not your job title, not your generic background. Something that reveals who you actually are. When someone asks what you do, most people say, I'm in marketing or I'm an engineer. Technically accurate. Completely forgettable. Marcus learned to answer differently. I help companies figure out why people actually buy what they buy. The psychology part fascinates me more than the tactics. Same information. But now there's texture, interest, an invitation to go deeper. Element 3. Follow curiosity, not script. Most people treat conversation like an interview. Question, answer, next question, answer. This creates rhythm but not resonance. Elite conversationalists follow threads. When someone mentions something interesting, they pull on that thread. Wait, you mentioned you used to live in Japan. What took you there? This signals something powerful. You're actually listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk. The 5-minute connection protocol. Here's Marcus's exact framework. You can use this tonight. Start with an observation or genuine question. Not, what do you do? Try these instead. What brought you to this event? Shows interest in their motivation. What's the most interesting thing you've worked on recently? Invites passion. If you could change one thing about your industry, what would it be? Creates opinion depth. Listen for energy. When their voice changes, their pace quickens, their eyes light up. That's the thread. Pull it. Tell me more about that. 4 words that create depth. Share something vulnerable. Not trauma, just human. I struggle with that too, or that's exactly why I got into this field, or I've never thought about it that way. Vulnerability is the shortcut to trust. When you show you're human, you give others permission to be human too. Ask about meaning, not just facts. What do you love about that? Or what's challenging about that? Or what would success look like? These questions bypass surface and access values, and values are where connection lives. Marcus started using this framework at his next networking event. Instead of talking to 20 people for 5 minutes each, he talked to 4 people for 25 minutes each. He left with 4 genuine connections. 2 became friends. 1 became a business partner. Same amount of time, completely different results. Elite versus average. The conversation. Divide. Average networkers try to meet as many people as possible. Elite networkers try to create as much depth as possible. Average people ask, what do you do? Elite people ask, what are you passionate about? Average people share their resume. Elite people share their interests. Average people stay safe. Elite people risk real conversation. Average people collect business cards. Elite people build relationships. Here's what nobody tells you. People don't remember what you said. They remember how the conversation felt. Marcus's old conversations felt transactional. His new conversations felt meaningful. That's the difference between forgettable and unforgettable. The introvert advantage in deep talk. If you're an introvert reading this, you just discovered your superpower. Extroverts often dominate conversations through volume and energy, but extroverts also tend towards surface-level interaction, breadth over depth. Introverts naturally prefer depth. You'd rather have 1 meaningful conversation than 10 shallow ones. This isn't a weakness. This is precisely what makes people magnetic. The most memorable conversations in your life weren't with the loudest people. They were with people who made you think, who asked questions that mattered, who listened like you were the only person in the room. That's the introvert advantage. And deep talk is your home territory. Your turn. The Deep Talk Challenge. For the next week, try this experiment. Have 3 conversations where you deliberately avoid small talk. Use Marcus's 5-minute protocol. Ask questions that require thought. Follow curiosity. Share something real. Notice what happens. Notice how people respond when you ask better questions. Notice how you feel when conversations have substance. You might feel awkward at first. That's normal. You're breaking social scripts. But watch what happens after the initial awkwardness. Watch people lean in. Watch them become more engaged. Watch them remember you. One warning, some people won't engage. They'll give surface answers and redirect to small talk. That's fine. Not everyone wants depth. Let them go and find people who do. The right people will meet you at that level, and those are your people. When both secrets collide, real-world applications, you've learned two foundational skills. Now let's talk about what happens when you use them together in the situations that matter most. Because here's what nobody tells you. Knowing the techniques is one thing. Applying them under pressure is something else entirely. Most people learn communication skills in ideal conditions, calm, low stakes, plenty of time to think. Then they try to use them in high-pressure situations and freeze. The job interview, the first date, the networking event where everyone seems more confident than you. Let me show you how Sarah and Marcus's secrets work together in real scenarios, and more importantly, how to troubleshoot when things don't go perfectly. Scenario 1. The high-stakes job interview. Jennifer was interviewing for her dream job. Senior product manager at a company she'd admired for years. She'd prepared thoroughly, knew her answers, had examples ready, but the moment she sat across from the hiring panel, her amygdala hit the alarm. 3 interviewers. Serious faces, clipboards, her chest tightened. Her thoughts started fragmenting. Old Jennifer would have spiraled. New Jennifer used Secret 1. 3 breaths in the waiting room. 4, 4, 6, count. Reframe. This activation energy means I care about this. That's good. I'm ready. The fog cleared. But the first question was generic. Tell us about yourself. Most people give their resume in paragraph form. Boring. Forgettable. Jennifer remembered Secret 2. Instead of reciting her background, she went deep immediately. I got into product management because I'm obsessed with the gap between what users say they want and what they actually need. My favorite part of the job is sitting with frustrated users and discovering the real problem beneath their complaints. The interviewers leaned forward. One smiled. Tell us more about that. She'd created depth in 30 seconds. The rest of the interview became a genuine conversation about philosophy and approach, not a Q&A interrogation. She got the job. The hiring manager told her later, most candidates gave us credentials. You gave us insight into how you think. Secret 1 gave her neural calm. Secret 2 gave her conversational depth. Together they transformed a stressful interrogation into meaningful connection. Scenario 2. The networking event. You're dreading. Carlos hated networking events. The forced mingling, the business card exchange, the shallow conversations that led nowhere. But his company was sending him to an industry conference. 3 days, hundreds of people, unavoidable. Old Carlos would have collected 50 business cards and remembered 0 people. New Carlos used both secrets strategically. Before each conversation, he used the 3-breath technique. Not to eliminate his introvert anxiety, but to channel it into focused presence. Then instead of asking, "What do you do?" he used Marcus's deep talk framework. What's the most interesting challenge in your industry right now? First conversation, a VP from a competing company opened up about their struggle with remote team cohesion. They talked for 20 minutes, exchanged real insights, planned a follow-up call. Second conversation, a startup founder described their pivot strategy. Carlos asked follow-up questions that showed genuine curiosity. The founder later connected him with 2 potential clients. Third conversation, a junior analyst was nervous and quiet. Carlos recognized his old self. He asked questions that gave her space to shine. She later sent a thank you email and became a valuable industry contact. 3 meaningful conversations instead of 30 forgettable ones. Carlos left energized, not drained, because he'd worked with his neurology instead of against it. Scenario 3. The first date. Emma had been on dozens of first dates. They all followed the same script. Where are you from? What do you do? Do you have siblings? By dessert, Both people knew facts but felt no connection. Her date with Alex started the same way. Standard small talk. She could feel them both going through the motions. Then Emma remembered, anxiety means I care. Deep questions create connection. She paused, took a subtle breath, then asked, what's something you're really excited about right now? Not work stuff, just something that makes you light up. Alex blinked, thought, then started talking about a documentary project he was working on. His voice changed, his energy shifted. He became animated. Emma listened at level 3, not just hearing words, but understanding what mattered to him. She reflected back. It sounds like the storytelling aspect is what really drives you, not just the technical filmmaking. Exactly. Most people don't get that distinction. The conversation transformed. They talked for 3 hours, not about credentials or logistics, about dreams, fears, what makes life meaningful. 6 months later, they're still together. Alex told her, that first date was different than any I'd ever had. You actually cared about who I was, not just what I did. Secret 1 gave Emma the calm to break the script. Secret 2 gave her the framework to create real connection. Together, they turned a generic date into the beginning of something real. Common mistakes and how to fix them. Even knowing these secrets, people make predictable errors. Let me save you time by addressing them now. Mistake 1, using the techniques mechanically. You learn the 3-breath method and use it like a magic spell. You memorize deep questions and ask them robotically. The fix, remember the purpose. The breath technique isn't magic, it's physiology. Deep questions aren't scripts, they're genuine curiosity. If you're not actually interested in the answer, don't ask the question. Mistake 2, trying to use deep talk with everyone. Not every conversation needs to be profound. Sometimes small talk is appropriate. The grocery store checkout, the elevator ride, brief professional exchanges. The fix, read the context. Use deep talk when there's time, mutual interest, and appropriate setting. Don't force depth where surface is sufficient. Mistake 3, getting frustrated when techniques don't work immediately. You try the 3-breath method once and still feel anxious. You ask a deep question and get a shallow answer. The fix, these are skills, not magic. Skills require practice. Your first attempts will be awkward. That's normal. Keep practicing. Improvement is gradual, not instant. Mistake 4, forgetting that other people have different communication styles. You want deep conversation. They want small talk. You offer vulnerability. They prefer privacy. The fix, match the other person's energy first, then gradually introduce depth. Don't bulldoze their boundaries. Read their receptiveness and adjust. The 24-hour rule. Here's a practice technique that accelerates your learning, the 24-hour review. After using these secrets in a real interaction, give yourself 24 hours, then mentally replay the conversation. What worked? What didn't? What would you do differently? Not to beat yourself up, to learn. Elite performers review their performance. Average people just repeat their mistakes. Sarah reviews her presentations this way. Marcus keeps a brief note in his phone after important conversations. This deliberate practice compounds your growth exponentially. Integration, anxiety, plus deep talk. Now you see why these 2 secrets work together. When you master your anxiety response, you gain the confidence to ask deeper questions. When you have deeper conversations, you get positive feedback that reduces social anxiety. Sarah learned to manage her nervous system, which gave her the courage to speak up. Marcus learned to create genuine connection, which made social situations energizing instead of draining. Both of them transformed not by becoming different people, but by learning how their brains work and working with that neurology. You're doing the same thing right now. But here's where it gets really interesting. Everything you've learned so far assumes one thing, that being extroverted is the goal. That quiet people need to become loud. That introverts need to fix themselves. What if that's completely backwards? In the next chapter, you're going to discover why introverts might actually have the strongest natural advantage in charisma, why the quiet ones often become the most magnetic, Why Priya Sharma went from invisible to influential without changing her fundamental nature. Because the third secret might surprise you. Your introversion isn't something to overcome, it's your secret weapon. Your quiet superpower, why introverts win at charisma. If you're an introvert, you've probably heard the same advice your entire life. Come out of your shell. Be more outgoing. Network more. Speak up. Put yourself out there. The message is clear. Your natural temperament is a problem that needs fixing. Here's what I'm about to prove to you. That advice is not just wrong. It's backwards. The most charismatic people I've studied aren't the loudest. They're not the most extroverted. They're not the ones working the room talking to everyone. Many of them are introverts who learned something that extroverts spend years trying to master. In this chapter, you're going to discover why your introversion might be your greatest advantage, why the quiet ones often become the most magnetic, why being selective with your energy isn't antisocial, it's strategic, and you're going to meet Priya Sharma, who went from completely invisible to impossible to ignore without changing her fundamental nature. Secret. Number 3. The Introvert Advantage, Priya's Story. The invisible analyst Priya Sharma was brilliant. Everyone knew it. Nobody listened to her. She was a data analyst at a mid-sized tech company. Her insights were sharp. Her analyses were thorough. Her recommendations could save the company millions. But in meetings with 10 people, her voice somehow never reached the room. She'd start to speak. Someone would interrupt. She'd wait for an opening. Someone else would jump in. She'd try again, voice a little louder. Someone would talk over her. By the time she had a chance to finish her thought, the conversation had moved on. Her point, the crucial point, lost in the noise. It wasn't just that people interrupted her. It was that they didn't even realize they had. A few minutes later, someone else would make the exact same point Priya had tried to make. Everyone would nod. Great insight, Michael. Michael would beam. Priya would sit there, invisible. Her manager's feedback in her annual review stung because it was technically true. Priya does excellent work, but she needs to demonstrate more leadership presence. She needs to be more assertive, more visible. Translation, she needed to be more extroverted. Priya tried. She really did. She forced herself to speak up faster, louder. She practiced power poses in the bathroom before meetings. She read books about confidence. She even took an improv class to get out of her comfort zone. Nothing worked. The forced extroversion felt like wearing someone else's skin, exhausting, inauthentic, unsustainable. She'd leave work drained, needing hours of silence to recover. The more she tried to be outgoing, the more she wanted to hide. Maybe you felt this. That pressure to perform extroversion. That exhaustion from being on all day. That sense that something is fundamentally wrong with you because you need alone time to recharge. Here's what nobody told Priya. And what nobody has probably told you. There's nothing wrong with your wiring. The neuroscience of introversion. Different operating systems. Let's get clear on what introversion actually is. Because it's not shyness. It's not social anxiety. It's not a preference to be alone. Introversion is about how your brain processes dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. Everyone's brain releases dopamine in response to stimulation, but introverts and extroverts have different sensitivity to it. Extroverts have less sensitive dopamine systems. They need more external stimulation to feel rewarded. More people, more noise, more activity. Their brains light up in social situations because that's where they get their dopamine hit. Introverts have highly sensitive dopamine systems. You don't need as much external stimulation. In fact, too much stimulation becomes overwhelming. Your brain gets its dopamine from internal reflection, deep focus, meaningful one-on-one interaction. This isn't a defect. It's a different processing system, like the difference between a sports car and an electric vehicle. Different engines, different fuel, both powerful, just different. But here's where it gets interesting. Introverts have something extroverts don't. Your brains preferentially use a different neurotransmitter pathway called acetylcholine. This pathway is associated with deep thinking, long-term memory, and sustained attention. This is why introverts tend to think before speaking, why you prefer depth over breadth, why you can focus for hours on complex problems, why you notice details others miss. This isn't a weakness to compensate for. This is your competitive advantage. The myth that's killing your potential, our culture worships extroversion. The person who talks the most is perceived as the leader. The person who networks the hardest wins. The loudest voice in the room gets heard. This creates a devastating assumption. Charisma requires extroversion. So introverts like Priya spend years trying to become something they're not. Forcing enthusiasm they don't feel. Attending networking events that drain them. Pushing themselves to be more outgoing until they burn out. Here's the truth that nobody explains. The most magnetic people aren't necessarily the most extroverted. They're the most authentic and the most intentional. Elite performers understand that introversion and charisma are not opposites. They're different expressions of the same thing: presence. Average people think charisma means dominating the room. Elite performers know charisma means commanding attention when you choose to give it. Average people think you need to talk a lot to be influential. Elite performers know that speaking less makes each word carry more weight. Average people exhaust themselves trying to be on all the time. Elite performers strategically deploy their energy for maximum impact. Priya's transformation began when she stopped trying to fix her introversion and started weaponizing it. The selective energy strategy Priya's breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Her company hired a consultant who happened to be a psychology researcher. During their first meeting, Priya apologized for being quiet. "I'm just kind of introverted," she said, like it was a confession. The consultant looked at her. "Why are you apologizing for having a strategic advantage?" This confused Priya. Strategic advantage? The consultant explained, extroverts spray their energy everywhere. "You're selective. That's not a limitation. That's precision." She taught Priya something called the selective energy framework. Instead of trying to be constantly on like extroverts, introverts should identify high-value moments and bring full presence to those moments. For Priya, high-value moments were presenting her data analysis findings, speaking to specific individuals who valued depth, contributing to decisions where her expertise mattered most, building relationships with key stakeholders one-on-one. Low-value moments were casual water cooler chat, large social events with no clear purpose, small talk before meetings, generic networking. Priya stopped forcing herself to be present at every low-value moment. She stopped feeling guilty about declining happy hours that drained her. She stopped trying to match the extrovert's energy at all-hands meetings where her voice got lost anyway. Instead, she conserved her energy for high-value moments. And in those moments, she showed up fully. The results shocked everyone, including Priya. Priya's transformation, quality over quantity. 3 months after adopting the selective energy strategy, Priya's presence in meetings changed completely. She stopped trying to jump into every discussion. Instead, she waited. She listened deeply. She processed. And when she did speak, she made it count. In a quarterly planning meeting, 12 people debated a strategic decision for 40 minutes. Voices overlapped. Arguments got circular. Priya said nothing. Then she spoke. Just one sentence. "We're solving the wrong problem." The room went quiet. She continued calmly, clearly. "We're debating execution before we've validated the assumption. Our data shows the customer behavior we're building for doesn't actually exist in our target segment." She pulled up 3 charts, explained her analysis in 90 seconds, sat back down. The strategy changed. The entire direction shifted. Her VP of product approached her afterward. "Priya, that was exactly what we needed. How did you see what we all missed?" The answer was simple, because she'd been listening while everyone else was performing. This pattern repeated. In one-on-one meetings, Priya built deeper relationships in 30 minutes than some people built in months. She asked thoughtful questions. She remembered details from previous conversations. She created space for others to think out loud. Her manager's feedback changed. Priya has exceptional strategic thinking. She doesn't speak often, but when she does, everyone listens. That's real leadership presence. Same person, same introversion, completely different outcome. The introvert's natural advantages. Let me show you what Priya discovered. Introverts have 5 natural charisma advantages that extroverts have to work to develop. Advantage 1, deep listening. Extroverts think by talking. Introverts think by processing. This means you naturally listen more carefully than most people. You catch nuances. You remember context. You understand subtext. In a world where everyone is fighting for airtime, the person who actually listens becomes magnetic. Advantage 2, thoughtful responses. You pause before speaking. Extroverts see this as hesitation. Elite performers recognize it as quality control. Your words carry more weight because they're carefully chosen. Average people speak to fill silence. Elite introverts speak to add value. Advantage 3, authentic connection. Introverts prefer depth over breadth. You'd rather have 2 genuine friendships than 50 superficial connections. This selectivity creates stronger bonds. Quality relationships trump quantity every time. Advantage 4, observational power. While extroverts are performing, you're watching. You notice body language. You read the room. You see patterns. This makes you strategically smarter. Advantage 5, calm presence. Introverts don't need to fill every silence or dominate every space. This creates a gravitational pull. People lean toward calm in a chaotic world. Your quietness isn't weakness. It's centered power, elite versus average. The introvert divide average introverts try to become extroverted. Elite introverts amplify their natural strengths. Average introverts see their need for alone time as antisocial. Elite introverts recognize it as strategic energy management. Average introverts force themselves to network broadly. Elite introverts build relationships deeply. Average introverts apologize for being quiet. Elite introverts let their silence create impact. Average introverts drain themselves trying to keep up with extroverts. Elite introverts play a different game entirely. Here's what changed everything for Priya. She stopped competing with extroverts on their terms. She started competing on her terms, the recharge protocol. But here's what's crucial. Leveraging your introvert advantages requires protecting your energy. Priya learned to treat her energy like a battery. She had a daily charge level. Social interaction drained it. Solitude recharged it. This wasn't antisocial behavior. This was strategic resource management. She built a recharge protocol, morning alone time before meetings. Even 15 minutes of silence with coffee reset her baseline, boundaries around low-value social demands. She stopped saying yes to every lunch invitation. She became selective. Post-meeting processing time. After intense interactions, she'd take 10 minutes alone to decompress and integrate daily non-negotiable solitude. At least 1 hour where she could think, read, or simply be quiet. Strategic scheduling. She'd block high-energy meetings for mornings when she was fresh, not back-to-back all day. Elite introverts understand protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's how you show up powerfully when it matters. Average people say yes to everything and show up exhausted. Elite performers say no strategically and show up exceptional. The one-on-one advantage. Here's where introverts have an almost unfair advantage. One-on-one conversation. In groups, extroverts dominate through volume, but in one-on-one settings, depth wins, and depth is introvert home territory. Priya started requesting one-on-one meetings with key stakeholders instead of trying to be heard in large groups. These conversations were different. Without the performance pressure, she was articulate, insightful, engaging. Her ideas landed. People remembered her points. Relationships deepened. She realized something powerful. She didn't need to win the room. She needed to win the right individuals, and she was exceptional at that. If you're an introvert, this is your power move. Stop trying to compete in the extrovert arena of large groups. Dominate the arena where you're naturally strongest. Deep, meaningful one-on-one connection. Introvert strategies for extrovert-dominated spaces. Let's address the elephant in the room. Everything you've learned about introvert advantages is true, but you still have to function in a world designed for extroverts. Open office plans. mandatory team-building events, brainstorming sessions where the loudest voice wins, performance reviews that measure executive presence and commanding the room. How do you leverage your introvert strengths in environments that reward extrovert behaviors? Priya faced this exact challenge. Her company culture celebrated the loud, the fast, the always-on. She couldn't change the system, but she could change her strategy within it. Here's what she learned, and what you can apply starting tomorrow. Strategy 1. The pre-meeting power move. Extroverts think out loud in meetings. They generate ideas through verbal processing. This gives them a natural advantage in traditional brainstorming. Introverts process internally before speaking. By the time you've formulated your thought, the conversation has moved on. Priya's solution. The pre-meeting one-on-one. Before important meetings, she'd schedule 10-minute conversations with key stakeholders. Not to pitch, to understand. What's your biggest concern about this project? What outcome would make you most satisfied? She'd listen deeply, process their perspectives, formulate her approach. Then in the actual meeting, when everyone else was still figuring out their position, Priya spoke with clarity and insight that reflected what stakeholders actually cared about. She wasn't louder. She was more prepared. And preparation beats volume every time. Try this. Before your next important meeting, have 2 or 3 pre-conversations. Listen more than you talk. Then watch how your meeting contributions land differently. Strategy 2. The written word advantage. In verbal discussions, extroverts dominate. In written communication, introverts excel. Priya started documenting her ideas in well-crafted emails and shared documents. Not long essays, clear, structured thinking that people could process on their own time. Her analysis would include problem definition, 3 potential solutions, recommendation with rationale, next steps. Leaders started forwarding her documents. Read what Priya wrote. She's thought this through. Her influence grew not because she talked more, but because she communicated more effectively through her natural medium. Elite introverts understand you don't have to win in real-time verbal combat. You can win through thoughtful written communication. Strategy 3. The strategic visibility method. You don't need to be visible all the time. You need to be visible at the right times. Priya identified 3 high-impact moments per week where her voice truly mattered. Project kickoffs, decision meetings, client presentations. She conserved energy for those moments, showed up fully present, made her 3 most important points with clarity and confidence. Then stepped back. Compared to her colleagues who talked constantly but said little of substance, Priya's selective contributions carried disproportionate weight. People started saying, "Let's wait for Priya's input on this." Not because she talked the most, because when she talked, it mattered. Average introverts try to match extroverts' constant visibility. Elite introverts create strategic visibility at crucial moments. Strategy 4. The energy boundary system. Here's what Priya learned about surviving extrovert-heavy cultures. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're strategic. She created clear energy boundaries, lunch alone twice a week, non-negotiable. This wasn't antisocial. This was recharge time that allowed her to be fully present in afternoon meetings. No meeting Fridays from 2 to 5 p.m. Protected time for deep work. She'd block her calendar. Most colleagues respected it. Declining optional social events guilt-free. Not all of them, just the ones that were pure obligation with no strategic value. Her manager initially pushed back. "We need you to be more of a team player," Priya reframed. "I am a team player. I'm ensuring I have the energy to deliver my best work when it matters most. My project outcomes speak for themselves." Her results defended her boundaries. Within 6 months, her approach was respected. Set boundaries that protect your energy. Let your results justify them. Strategy 5. The hybrid work leverage. If you work remotely or hybrid, you've discovered introvert paradise. No open office, no random interruptions, control over your environment. But many introverts fail to leverage this fully. They replicate extrovert patterns online. Priya optimized for introvert strengths, async communication over real time. She'd send thoughtful Slack messages rather than jumping on calls for every question, video off when appropriate. Not every meeting required camera. Audio only allowed her to listen more deeply without the performance pressure. Strategic camera moments. When she did turn video on, it was intentional. For important discussions, for relationship building, for moments that truly benefited from face-to-face connection. Her remote presence became more influential than her office presence had been, because she wasn't fighting her nature anymore. Debunking the biggest introvert. Myths. Let me destroy some misconceptions that might still be holding you back. Myth 1. Introverts don't like people. False. Introverts love people. We just prefer quality over quantity. Deep over surface, Priya genuinely enjoyed her colleagues. In the right dose and the right format. Myth 2. Introverts can't be leaders. Ridiculous. Studies show introverts often make better leaders because they listen more, think deeply, and empower others rather than dominating. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Barack Obama, Rosa Parks, all introverts, all exceptional leaders. Myth 3. You need to overcome introversion to succeed. Wrong. You need to leverage introversion to succeed. The most successful introverts didn't fix themselves. They optimized themselves. Myth 4. Introverts are shy. Introversion is about energy source. Shyness is about fear. Completely different. Many introverts are socially confident. They just need alone time to recharge. Priya wasn't shy. She was selective. There's a profound difference. Myth 5. Networking is impossible for introverts. Networking is actually easier for introverts. You prefer depth. You build stronger relationships. You remember details. These create more valuable networks than collecting hundreds of shallow contacts. Quality networks beat quantity networks. Introvert advantage. The introvert career acceleration path. Here's what the data shows. Introverts who embrace their nature rather than fight it advance faster in their careers. Why? Because modern work increasingly values deep thinking over quick reactions, strategic insight over rapid-fire ideas, quality relationships over broad networks, written communication over verbal dominance, listening over talking, thoughtfulness over immediacy. These are all introvert strengths. The future of work favors introverts. Remote collaboration, async communication, deep work emphasis, thoughtful decision-making. Priya's career accelerated once she stopped apologizing and started optimizing. Promotion within 18 months. Sought after for strategic projects. Recognized as a thought leader. Not by becoming extroverted. By becoming exceptionally, strategically introverted. Your introvert manifesto: you are not broken. You are not antisocial. You are not less than extroverts. You are differently powerful. Your depth is your strength. Your selectivity is your strategy. Your need for solitude is your competitive advantage. Stop trying to become someone you're not. Start becoming the most powerful version of who you are. The world needs what you have. Thoughtfulness in a reactive culture. Depth in a surface world. Quality in a quantity obsession. Your introversion isn't something to overcome. It's your secret weapon. Use it. Your turn. The introvert advantage activation for the next 2 weeks. Try this experiment. First, identify your high-value moments. Where does your presence actually matter? Where can your unique insights create impact? Focus your energy there. Second, give yourself permission to skip low-value social demands. Not everything requires your presence. Be selective. Be strategic. Third, build your recharge protocol. What helps you restore your energy? Build that into your daily schedule as non-negotiable time. Fourth, leverage your listening superpower. In your next 3 conversations, speak 20% less than usual. Watch what happens when you give others space. Fifth, request more one-on-one meetings. Transform group discussions into individual conversations where your depth becomes your advantage. Notice what changes. Notice how showing up selectively makes you more memorable, not less. Notice how your thoughtful contributions carry more weight than constant chatter. The permission you've been waiting for. Here is what I need you to hear. You don't need to become an extrovert to be charismatic. You don't need to love networking events. You don't need to be the life of the party. You don't need to fill every silence with words. You need to be intentionally, powerfully yourself. Priya's transformation wasn't about becoming someone different. It was about stop apologizing for who she already was and start leveraging it strategically. Your introversion isn't something to fix, hide, or overcome. It's the foundation of your unique presence. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more depth, more thoughtfulness, more genuine presence. More people who listen before speaking and speak only when they have something worth saying. That's you. That's your advantage. What's coming next? Everything you've learned so far assumes in-person interaction, face-to-face conversations, physical rooms, real-time presence. But it's 2025. Half your conversations now happen on Zoom. Your professional presence lives on LinkedIn. You build relationships through DMs and emails. You collaborate with people you've never met in person. And here's the problem. The rules are completely different. What makes you charismatic face-to-face might make you invisible on camera. What works in person fails in digital space. The techniques that create presence in a room don't translate to a screen. Jake Morrison discovered this the hard way. He was great in person, warm, engaging, memorable. But put him on a Zoom call, and he became a floating head in a generic background who nobody remembered 5 minutes later. His transformation required understanding something crucial. Digital charisma operates on different neuroscience than in-person presence. In the next chapter, you're going to learn the hidden rules of screen presence, how to be magnetic on camera, how to create connection through text, how to build authority on LinkedIn, how camera angles, lighting, and background psychology change everything, because your authentic charisma deserves to be seen, whether you're in the room or on the screen. Let's bridge the digital gap. Screen presence and voice command. The modern charisma toolkit. The year is 2025. You nail an in-person interview. The company loves you. Then they schedule a Zoom call with the team. Suddenly you're a forgettable floating head in a dark room. They go with another candidate, or you write brilliant emails that get ignored. Your LinkedIn profile gets zero engagement. Your DMs disappear into the void. You're charismatic in person but invisible online. This is the modern charisma gap, and it's costing you opportunities every single day. Here's what most people don't understand. Digital charisma isn't just in-person charisma through a screen. It operates on completely different neurological principles, different rules, different techniques, different psychology. In this chapter, you're going to learn 2 critical skills for modern influence. First, you'll discover how to translate your presence to digital platforms. Then, you'll master the vocal authority that makes people listen whether you're in the room or on a recording. Let's start with the person who learned this lesson the expensive way. Secret. For Digital Age Connection, Jake's story. The Zoom ghost Jake Morrison was a freelance brand consultant. In person, he was magnetic. Warm smile, good eye contact, natural conversational flow. Clients loved meeting him for coffee. He'd close deals over lunch consistently. Then the pandemic hit. Everything moved online. Suddenly, Jake's calendar emptied. His conversion rate plummeted. Same pitch, same expertise, same person. But on Zoom, something fundamental changed. He'd join client calls with his laptop camera, sitting in his home office. Professional enough, articulate enough, but somehow forgettable. Clients would thank him politely, say they'd think about it, then ghost him. He watched his competitors, people with less experience, less charm in person, land clients consistently. What were they doing differently? Jake started recording his Zoom calls to figure it out. What he saw shocked him. His camera angle made him look up at the screen, creating an unintentionally submissive posture. His lighting cast shadows that made him look tired. His background was cluttered, subconsciously communicating disorganization. His eye contact was off because he looked at the client's face on screen instead of the camera. But the biggest problem was subtle. His energy didn't translate. The warmth that made him magnetic in person got flattened by the screen. He looked like every other consultant. Generic, forgettable, replaceable. Maybe you felt this. That frustration when your personality doesn't land through a screen. When your carefully crafted email gets a 2-word response. When your thoughtful LinkedIn post gets 3 likes. When you're engaging in person but invisible online. The problem isn't you. It's that you're using in-person rules in a digital game. The neuroscience of screen presence. Here's what happens neurologically when humans interact through screens. In person, your brain processes hundreds of microsignals simultaneously. Subtle body language, spatial proximity, pheromones, energy, three-dimensional presence. These signals create what neuroscientists call social presence, the feeling that someone is really there. On a screen, 50% of those signals disappear. Your brain knows the person isn't actually in the room. Mirror neurons activate less strongly. Oxytocin release decreases. Attention drifts more easily. This is why Zoom fatigue is real. Your brain works harder to process limited signals. It fills gaps with assumptions. It disengages faster. To create magnetic digital presence, you need to compensate for these missing signals. You need to amplify the signals that do translate. You need to understand camera psychology. Jake spent 3 months studying this. He analyzed successful YouTubers, TED Talk speakers, news anchors. He tested different setups. He learned the hidden rules. Here's what he discovered. The camera psychology principles. Principle 1. The camera is not your friend. It's a filter that removes 50% of your personality unless you intentionally amplify. In person, you can be subtle. On camera, subtle reads as flat. You need 20% more energy, 20% more expressiveness, 20% more vocal variety. This feels fake at first. You think you're overacting. But watch the recording. What feels like too much in the room translates to engaging on screen. Average people bring their normal energy to Zoom. Elite performers boost their energy for the camera. Principle 2. Eye contact on camera requires looking at the lens, not the screen. This feels unnatural. You can't see the person's reaction, but it's the difference between connection and detachment. Jake put a small sticky note near his camera with a smiley face. When making important points, he looked at the smiley face. This created the illusion of direct eye contact for viewers. You don't need to stare at the lens continuously. That's creepy. But hit the camera during key moments, when making your main point, when listening to something important, when building connection. Principle 3. Camera angle matters more than you think. Your camera should be at eye level or slightly above, never below. A low angle makes you look up, which subconsciously communicates submission. A high angle makes you look down, which communicates authority but can feel condescending. Eye level creates equality and engagement. Jake bought a laptop stand, $20. Game-changing impact. Principle 4. Lighting is personality. Bad lighting makes you look tired, unprofessional, forgettable. Good lighting makes you look energized, polished, magnetic. You don't need expensive equipment. A simple ring light or positioning yourself facing a window transforms your presence. The key is front lighting that illuminates your face evenly, without harsh shadows. Jake positioned his desk perpendicular to his window. Natural light from the side plus a small LED panel in front. His face went from shadowy and flat to dimensional and engaging. Principle 5. Background communicates identity. A messy background suggests disorganization. A blank wall suggests sterility. The right background suggests credibility and personality. Jake created a simple background. Bookshelf with carefully chosen books, a plant, subtle art. Not distracting. Just enough context to suggest thoughtful professional who reads and has taste. Jake's digital transformation. 3 months after optimizing his setup, Jake's conversion rate tripled. Same consultant, same pitch. But now his Zoom presence matched his in-person charisma. His camera was eye level. His lighting was professional. His background suggested credibility. His energy was amplified for the camera. His eye contact hit the lens during key moments. But the real change was internal. He stopped treating digital meetings as inferior versions of in-person meetings. He treated them as a different medium requiring different techniques. Elite performers don't fight the medium. They master it. The LinkedIn presence formula, but Zoom was only half of Jake's digital challenge. He also needed to build presence on LinkedIn. His profile was fine. Professional photo, decent headline, work history. but zero engagement. His posts got ignored. His connection requests went unanswered. The problem was invisible authority. On LinkedIn, you're competing with thousands of people in your field. Without visible proof of expertise, you're just noise. Jake learned the LinkedIn presence formula, Element 1. Your headline isn't your job title. It's your value proposition, not brand consultant. Instead, I help tech startups tell stories that convert, brand strategy plus messaging. Element 2. Your posts need to provide immediate value. Not had a great meeting today. Instead, 3 questions I ask every client in the first 5 minutes that reveal whether their brand message will work. Element 3. Engagement is currency. Comment thoughtfully on others' posts. Not great post, but substantial additions to the conversation. This makes you visible to their networks. Element 4. Consistency beats perfection. Post once a week minimum. Quality content regularly trumps perfect content occasionally. Jake started posting weekly insights. Short frameworks, counterintuitive observations, real client lessons. Within 6 months, his profile went from invisible to industry resource. Clients started finding him. The DM connection strategy digital direct messages are where relationships begin or die. Most people treat DMs transactionally. Elite performers treat them strategically. Average DM, hey, saw your profile. Let's connect. I do marketing consulting. Let me know if you need help. Translation, I want something from you. Please give me your time and money. Elite DM. Your recent post about brand positioning really resonated. The point about differentiation versus distinction was something I've been wrestling with. Would love to hear your thoughts on how that applies to B2B versus B2C contexts. Translation, I actually read your content. I'm thoughtful. I'm offering interesting conversation, not taking. Jake stopped using DMs to pitch. He started using them to build genuine connection. Ask questions, offer insights, create value before extracting it. Response rate increased by 400%. Elite versus average. The digital divide. Average people use the same approach for in-person and digital. Elite performers adapt to the medium. Average people use their laptop camera from below. Elite performers invest in proper setup. Average people bring normal energy to Zoom. Elite performers amplify for the camera. Average people have generic LinkedIn profiles. Elite performers showcase visible expertise. Average people pitch in DMs. Elite performers build relationships first. Your turn. The digital presence upgrade this week. Optimize your digital setup. Fix your camera angle, eye level minimum. Test your lighting. Face a window or add a simple light. Audit your background. What does it communicate about you? Record a practice Zoom call. Watch it. Be honest. Would you hire this person? If not, what needs to change? Update your LinkedIn headline. Make it about value, not title. Write 1 post offering genuine insight. Comment thoughtfully on 3 posts in your field. Send 3 DMs that offer value instead of asking for it. Notice the difference in response. Secret number 5, the vocal authority formula. Dr. Elena's story, the monotone expert. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had 15 years of experience. A PhD in cognitive psychology. Published research. Undeniable expertise. Her students fell asleep in her lectures, not because her content was boring. Her insights were fascinating. Her knowledge was deep, but her delivery was flat, monotone, no variation in pitch, pace, or energy. She'd present groundbreaking research in the same tone someone would read a grocery list. Her voice carried no emotion, no emphasis, no life. Within 10 minutes, even interested students zoned out. Her teaching evaluations were painful to read. Dr. Rodriguez clearly knows her material, but the lectures are impossible to stay engaged with. I learned more from reading the textbook than attending class. The university put her on a performance improvement plan. Improve student engagement or face consequences. Elena was devastated. She'd spent her entire career building expertise. Now she was being told her delivery mattered more than her content. It felt unfair. But here's what nobody had explained to her. In communication, how you say something matters more than what you say. The neuroscience of vocal impact. Your voice is your fingerprint. It carries more information than your words. When someone speaks, Your brain processes two streams simultaneously. The semantic stream analyzes words and meaning. The prosodic stream analyzes tone, pitch, rhythm, emotion. Here's the shocking part. The prosodic stream activates your emotional centers faster and stronger than the semantic stream. Translation. People feel your tone before they understand your words. This is why you can say "I'm fine" in a tone that communicates "I'm definitely not fine." Your words say one thing, your voice says another. Your brain believes the voice. Studies show that in communication, words carry only 7% of your impact. Tone carries 38%. Body language carries 55%. But in audio-only formats like podcasts or audiobooks, vocal tone becomes 70% of your impact. Elena's problem wasn't her knowledge. It was that her vocal delivery created no emotional activation in her students' brains. No activation means no engagement. No engagement means no learning. She needed to learn what singers, actors, and professional speakers already know. Voice is an instrument, and instruments require technique. The vocal authority formula, 5 elements. Elena hired a speech coach, not to change her voice, but to learn how to use it. Over 6 months, she mastered 5 elements. Element 1, pitch variation. Monotone means one tone, no highs, no lows, just flat. This signals to listeners' brains that nothing important is happening. Vocal variation creates emphasis. Going higher signals excitement or importance. Going lower signals gravitas or seriousness. Moving through a range keeps brains engaged. Elena learned to emphasize key points by shifting pitch. Not dramatically, just enough to signal, pay attention here. Element 2, pace variation. Speaking at one speed, fast or slow, creates audio wallpaper. Brains tune out. Varying your pace creates rhythm. Rhythm creates engagement. Fast pace suggests urgency or excitement. Slow pace suggests importance or reflection. Mixing both creates dynamic delivery. Elena learned to slow down on critical concepts, speed up on supporting details. This guided attention naturally. Element 3, strategic pauses. Most people fear silence. They fill every gap with words, or This removes power from speech. Elite speakers weaponize silence. A pause before your main point builds anticipation. A pause after creates impact. Silence lets important ideas sink in. Elena learned the 3-second rule. Before making a key point, pause for 3 seconds. It feels like forever. It's actually magnetic. Element 4, vocal power. Not volume, power. Volume is how loud you speak. Power is how much resonance and breath support you use. A powerful voice comes from your diaphragm, not your throat. It carries authority without shouting. It fills space naturally. Elena learned diaphragmatic breathing, speaking from her core instead of her throat. Her voice gained depth and presence. Element 5, warmth. This is the secret ingredient. You can have perfect pitch, pace, and power, but without warmth you sound robotic. Warmth comes from genuine emotion, from caring about your message and your audience. It manifests as subtle softness in your tone, a smile in your voice, connection instead of performance. Elena stopped thinking about delivering information and started thinking about sharing insights she cared about. Her voice changed immediately. Elena's vocal transformation. The first lecture after her training, Elena's students noticed something different. Her voice had range. She emphasized. She paused. She varied her pace. She spoke with energy and warmth. Same content. Completely different experience. By midterm, her previously empty office hours had waiting lists. Students wanted to discuss concepts from lecture. Her evaluations transformed. Dr. Rodriguez makes complex psychology accessible and engaging. Best lecturer I've had. She didn't change her expertise. She changed how she delivered it. The warmth-authority balance. Here's the challenge. Authority without warmth feels cold. Warmth without authority feels weak. The magic happens when you balance both. Average speakers choose one, either warm and friendly but lacking gravitas, or authoritative and commanding but distant and cold. Elite speakers integrate both. Warmth builds connection. Authority builds respect. Together they create magnetic presence. Elena learned to start lectures with warmth, welcoming, conversational, connecting. Then shift to authority for core content, clear, powerful, definitive. Then return to warmth for application, encouraging, supportive, human. This dance between warmth and authority keeps audiences engaged and respected. Your turn. The vocal authority practice. Record yourself speaking for 2 minutes. A presentation, a story, anything. Now listen, be honest. Does your voice have pitch variation or is it monotone? Do you vary pace or stay constant? Do you use pauses or fill every silence? Does your voice carry power or strain? Does it sound warm or mechanical? Most people are shocked by how they actually sound versus how they think they sound. Now practice the 5 elements. Pitch variation. Record the same content emphasizing different words by changing pitch. Notice the impact. Pace variation. Speed up on less important parts. Slow down on key points. Exaggerate at first to feel the difference. Strategic pauses. Before and after your main point, pause for 3 full seconds. Fight the urge to fill it. Vocal power. Place your hand on your belly. Breathe deeply. Speak from your core, not your throat. Feel the difference. Warmth. Smile while speaking. Genuinely think about helping your listener. Notice how your tone changes. Record again. Compare. The difference will surprise you. Elite versus average. The vocal divide. Average speakers focus on words. Elite speakers master delivery. Average speakers rush through content. Elite speakers pace for impact. Average speakers fear silence. Elite speakers weaponize pauses. Average speakers speak from their throat. Elite speakers speak from their core. Average speakers choose warmth or authority. Elite speakers balance both. Your voice is your most powerful tool. Master it. Advanced digital vocal integration. When both worlds collide, you've learned digital presence. You've mastered vocal authority. Now let's talk about what happens when you need both simultaneously. Because the modern professional lives in hybrid reality. Zoom presentations, podcast interviews, video content, LinkedIn videos, sales calls, webinars. Every one of these requires digital setup and vocal mastery working together seamlessly. Most people optimize one and neglect the other. Elite performers integrate both. Let me show you how Jake and Elena's techniques combine in the situations that will define your career. Scenario 1. The high-stakes client presentation via Zoom. Marcus was pitching to a Fortune 500 company. 6-figure contract. 8 decision-makers on the call. This was his biggest opportunity yet. He'd optimized his setup. Camera at eye level. Ring light creating professional glow. Background showing his bookshelf with strategically placed industry books. He looked like he belonged on a TED stage, but in his practice run, something felt off. He sounded flat. Professional, yes, but not compelling. That's when he realized digital optimization without vocal mastery creates a polished corpse. Perfect lighting on a monotone delivery is still monotone. He integrated Elena's vocal techniques into his digital setup. Warm-up before the call. 5 minutes of humming, lip trills, vocal slides. This activated his vocal cords and centered his breath. Camera as conversation partner. Instead of reading slides, he imagined the camera was his ideal client. This shifted his tone from presenting to connecting. Strategic pauses on camera. In person, pauses feel natural. On screen, they feel twice as long. He practiced 3-second pauses that felt eternal to him but translated as thoughtful to viewers. Vocal energy amplification. He recorded himself at normal energy, then at 20% higher energy. The second recording felt too much to him. But on Zoom, it translated as engaging. The result. 6 decision makers. 6 yes votes. Contract signed. One of them told him afterward, "Most presentations feel like they're reading to us. Yours felt like you were talking with us." Digital setup got him in the door. Vocal mastery closed the deal. Scenario 2. The podcast interview. Elena was invited to a popular psychology podcast. 50,000 listeners. Perfect opportunity to build her reputation beyond academia. She knew her content. But podcasts are pure audio. No body language. No visual aids. Just voice. Many experts fail at podcasts because they don't understand the medium. They treat it like a lecture, or worse, a conversation they'd have over coffee. Elena approached it strategically, pre-interview vocal prep. 30 minutes before recording, she did her full warm-up routine. Diaphragmatic breathing, pitch slides, articulation exercises, energy calibration. Podcasts require 15% more vocal energy than in-person conversation. Less than that, you sound bored. More, you sound manic. She practiced this specific calibration, strategic microphone technique. She positioned herself 4 inches from the mic, close enough for intimacy, far enough to avoid plosives. She tested her P and B sounds, vocal variety mapping. She pre-marked her talking points, which needed enthusiasm, pitch up, which needed gravitas, pitch down, which needed pause, silence for impact, story arc pacing. She structured her answers with natural rhythm, fast pace for setup, slow pace for key insights, strategic pause before conclusions. The episode became the podcast's most downloaded. The host told her, "Your content was great, but honestly, I've had experts with better credentials who put audiences to sleep. You kept people engaged for 60 minutes straight. Content is necessary. Delivery is what makes it memorable." Scenario 3. Creating video content. Jake decided to create LinkedIn video content. Short tips for brand consultants. 2-minute videos twice a week. First attempt was disaster. He looked good on camera. His lighting was professional, but his delivery was stiff. He sounded like he was reading a script. Because he realized video content requires the most challenging integration. Digital setup, vocal mastery, and authentic presence, all while staring at a camera lens. Here's the system he developed. Outline, don't script. He wrote bullet points, not sentences. This kept his content structured, but his delivery conversational. Warm-up body and voice. 10 minutes before recording, jumping jacks for physical energy, vocal warm-ups for sound quality, power poses for confidence. Record standing. Sitting creates compressed diaphragm and lower energy. Standing enabled better breath support and more natural gesturing. Imagine one person, not the audience. One specific person he wanted to help. This shifted his eyes from performing for camera to talking to friend. Multiple takes, best moments. He'd record each section 3 times. Take 1 was usually stiff. Take 2 was better. Take 3 was natural. He'd edit the best moments together. His videos started getting traction. Comments like, "Most LinkedIn videos feel fake. Yours feel like you're actually talking to me." Within 6 months, 20,000 followers. 3 inbound client leads per week. Speaking invitation at industry conference. All from integrating digital setup with vocal delivery with authentic presence. Common integration mistakes. Even knowing both skills, people make predictable errors when combining them. Mistake 1. Optimizing for perfectionism instead of authenticity. Your lighting is perfect. Your sound is perfect, but you sound robotic because you're so focused on technical elements. Fix. Get your setup good enough, then forget about it. Focus on your message and connection. Mistake 2. Using in-person vocal energy on digital platforms. What works in a conference room feels flat on Zoom. What works on Zoom feels over the top in person. Fix. Calibrate specifically for the medium. Digital always requires more energy than you think. Mistake 3. Neglecting audio quality while perfecting video. People will tolerate okay video. They won't tolerate bad audio. Poor sound quality tanks credibility faster than anything. Fix. Invest in a decent microphone before you invest in fancy lighting. Mistake 4. Reading scripts on video. Your eyes move back and forth. Your tone flattens. Viewers feel the disconnect immediately. Fix. Use bullet points. Or if you must use teleprompter, practice until it's internalized. Mistake 5. Forgetting to warm up. You wouldn't run a marathon without stretching. Don't do important calls or recordings without vocal warm-up. Fix. 5-minute minimum. Humming, lip trills, breathing exercises. The platform-specific playbook. Different platforms require different integration approaches. Zoom meetings eye level. Camera plus front lighting plus 20% vocal energy. Boost plus strategic pauses. Podcast audio, professional mic plus 30% energy boost plus maximum vocal. Variety plus story-driven pacing, LinkedIn video, standing. Position plus conversational outline, plus authentic energy, plus direct camera address, webinar presentation, polished setup, plus lecture style vocal authority, plus clear articulation, plus strategic pausing for Q&A Instagram stories, handheld casual feel, plus friendly vocal warmth, plus quick pacing, plus authentic imperfection, YouTube tutorials, professional setup, plus teaching vocal tone, plus measured pacing, plus clear demonstration. Each platform has different norms. Match your integration to the medium. The 15-minute pre-performance ritual. Elite performers don't wing it. They have rituals that integrate physical, vocal, and mental preparation. Here's the universal pre-performance protocol. Minutes 1-3, physical warm-up. Light movement, shoulder rolls, neck stretches, get blood flowing. Minutes 4-6, breathing calibration. 4-4-6 breathing, 10 cycles. This activates parasympathetic calm. Minutes 7-10, vocal warm-up, humming, lip trills, pitch slides, tongue twisters. Wake up your instrument. Minutes 11-13, technical check. Camera angle, lighting, audio levels, background. Get set up right. Minutes 14-15, mental centering. Review key points, visualize successful delivery. Set intention, then perform. This ritual creates consistency. Your best performance isn't luck. It's preparation, integration, digital plus vocal. Notice how these secrets connect. Jake's digital presence required vocal authority through a microphone. Elena's vocal transformation worked on Zoom and in recordings. In the modern world, your voice travels through cameras and speakers more often than physical space. Master both mediums and you become unforgettable in any format. But here's what we haven't addressed yet. You can optimize your camera. You can master your voice. You can create all the digital presence and vocal authority in the world. But if you're talking more than listening, none of it matters. The next secret might be the most counterintuitive. The most charismatic people in any room aren't the best speakers. They're the best listeners. David Park learned this the hard way. He was that person everyone avoided. The overtalker. The conversation dominator. The person who never let anyone else finish a thought. Then he discovered the empathic listening system, the framework that transformed him from exhausting to sought after. In the next chapter, you're going to learn why silence is your secret weapon, why listening creates more influence than speaking, why the power of strategic attention makes you unforgettable. Because here's what nobody tells you. Everyone wants to be heard. So the person who actually listens becomes magnetic. Let's learn how to listen like your charisma depends on it, because it does. The silence advantage. How listening makes you unforgettable. You've learned to manage your anxiety. You've mastered deep conversation. You've weaponized your introversion. You've optimized your digital presence. You've trained your voice. Now forget everything you think you know about communication. Because the most powerful charisma skill has nothing to do with speaking. It has everything to do with shutting up. The most magnetic people in any room aren't the best talkers. They're the best listeners, not the people dominating conversations, the people creating space for others to be heard. This sounds simple. It's not, because real listening, the kind that makes you unforgettable, requires fighting against every instinct your ego has. In this chapter, you're going to learn why listening creates more influence than speaking, how silence generates connection, why the person who talks less is remembered most, and you're going to meet David Park, who learned this lesson after years of wondering why everyone avoided him. Secret number 6, the empathic listening. System David's story, the conversation killer David. Park was exhausting to be around, not because he was mean, not because he was boring, because he never stopped talking. At parties, he'd corner someone and monologue for 20 minutes about his work, his opinions, his experiences, his insights. The other person would glance around desperately, looking for an escape route. In meetings, he'd dominate discussions, jump in before others finished, turn every topic back to something he knew about. His colleagues learned to stop contributing Why bother when David would talk over them anyway? On dates, he'd spend 2 hours talking about himself, then wonder why there was no second date. David genuinely didn't realize what he was doing. In his mind, he was being engaging, enthusiastic, contributive. He had interesting things to say. Why wouldn't people want to hear them? But here's what he didn't see. People weren't listening to him. They were waiting for him to stop. His friend group slowly shrank. Invitations decreased. People started saying they were busy. David felt increasingly lonely, which made him talk more to compensate, which made things worse. His wake-up call came at a networking event. He'd been talking to a potential client for 15 minutes, telling a story, making points, being engaging. The client's eyes glazed over. He checked his phone, made an excuse, walked away mid-sentence. David stood there stunned. What had he done wrong? Later that night, watching other people network successfully, he noticed something. The magnetic people at the event weren't the ones talking most. They were the ones asking questions and then actually listening to the answers. Revolutionary concept. Other people have things to say too. Maybe you've caught yourself doing this. Waiting for someone to finish so you can make your point. Planning your response while they're still talking. Steering every conversation back to your experiences. Interrupting because your thought is so important it can't wait. If you recognize this pattern, stay with me, because David's transformation will show you why your talking is killing your charisma. The neuroscience of being heard. Here's what happens in someone's brain when they feel truly heard. Their ventromedial prefrontal cortex activates. This region processes self-referential thinking and reward. Being listened to literally feels rewarding to the brain. It releases oxytocin, the bonding neurotransmitter. It creates positive association with you. But here's the key. This only happens with genuine listening. Not performative listening where you're nodding while planning your response. Genuine attention. Your brain can detect authentic listening versus fake listening. Mirror neurons pick up microsignals, eye movement patterns, facial responsiveness, body language, when someone is genuinely present versus just waiting to talk. Authentic listening creates neural synchronization. Brain scans show that when someone feels truly heard, their brain activity starts synchronizing with the listener's brain. This creates what neuroscientists call neural coupling, a literal brain-to-brain connection. This is why you remember people who really listened to you. Not just what they said, how they made you feel, seen, understood, valued. David had spent years making people feel invisible while talking at them. Now he needed to learn how to make people feel seen by listening to them. The 70-30 rule. David's therapist gave him a challenge. In your next 10 conversations, speak only 30% of the time. Listen 70%. David thought this would be easy. It was torture. Every time someone talked, his brain generated responses, opinions, stories, connections. The urge to jump in was overwhelming. But he forced himself to stay quiet, to let the other person keep talking. Something remarkable happened. When he stopped filling space with his words, other people filled it with theirs. And what they shared was fascinating. Insights he'd never heard, stories he'd never known, perspectives that challenged his assumptions. In his first conversation using the 70-30 rule, his co-worker opened up about a career struggle she'd never mentioned, because David finally gave her space to talk. In his second conversation, a client revealed the real reason he was hesitant about a project, because David stopped pitching long enough to ask and then listen. By his 10th conversation, people were thanking him. Thanks for listening. I really needed to talk about that. You're easy to talk to. Same person. Different ratio. Completely different results. Elite performers understand. Influence comes from making others feel heard, not from being heard yourself. Average people talk 70%, listen 30%. Elite performers reverse the ratio. Average people wait for their turn to speak. Elite performers listen to understand. Average people think, how can I contribute? Elite performers think, how can I learn? Active listening versus performative listening. But here's where most people fail. They think listening means staying quiet. Wrong. Performative listening is staying silent while planning your response. Your body is still, your mouth is closed, but your mind is elsewhere. The other person can feel it. Active listening is full presence. You're not planning your response. You're absorbing their words, processing their meaning, feeling their emotion, present in the moment. David learned the difference through a simple test. After a conversation where he'd listened, his therapist asked, "What did they say about their family situation?" David froze. He couldn't remember. He'd been too busy preparing his own stories. That's performative listening. You hear words but don't integrate meaning. Active listening requires 3 practices. Practice 1. Clear your mental queue. When thoughts about your response arise, acknowledge them and let them go. Return to the speaker's words. Practice 2. Listen for emotion, not just facts. What are they feeling? Excited, frustrated, uncertain? The emotion carries more information than the words. Practice 3. Confirm understanding. Not parroting, reflecting. So it sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by the timeline, not the actual work? This shows you're processing, not just hearing. David practiced this religiously. Within a month, people commented on how much he'd changed. He hadn't become more interesting. He'd become more interested. The 3-second pause. Here's the technique that transformed David's conversations. Strategic silence. Most people respond to others instantly. Someone finishes a sentence, you immediately jump in. This creates rapid-fire exchange that feels productive but lacks depth. David learned the 3-second pause. When someone finishes speaking, he'd wait 3 full seconds before responding. 3 seconds feels eternal. Your brain screams at you to fill the silence. Resist. Here's what happens in those 3 seconds. Second 1. The other person often continues. They add context they were holding back, the real thought beneath the surface thought. Second 2. You fully process what they said. Not just the words, but the meaning. Second 3. You formulate a thoughtful response instead of a reactive one. The 3-second pause communicates something powerful. What they said matters enough for you to consider it carefully. Average people fill every silence immediately. Elite performers use silence strategically. David started using this in meetings. Someone would present an idea. Instead of immediately responding, he'd pause, look thoughtful, then speak. His contributions carried more weight because they came from genuine consideration, not instant reaction. The reflective listening framework, but silence alone isn't enough. You need to demonstrate understanding. David learned reflective listening. Instead of responding with his own stories or opinions, he'd reflect back what he heard, not parroting. So you're saying you're stressed. Reflecting, it sounds like the deadline is manageable, but you're worried the scope might expand and make it impossible. Do you see the difference? Parroting is mechanical. Reflecting shows you understood the nuance beneath the words. The framework has 3 levels. Level 1, reflect content. So the main challenge is coordinating across 3 time zones. Level 2, reflect emotion. It sounds like that's frustrating because you can't control the pace. Level 3, reflect meaning. What I'm hearing is that this isn't just about the logistics. It's about feeling trusted to handle it your way. Level 3 is where connection happens, because you're not just hearing their problem, you're understanding their experience. David practiced this constantly. In every conversation, he'd try to reflect at level 3 at least once. The responses shocked him. Exactly. That's exactly it. Wow, you really get it. I've never been able to articulate it that clearly. He wasn't giving advice. He wasn't solving problems. He was demonstrating understanding, and that created more connection than all his years of talking ever had. David's transformation, from avoided to sought. 6 months after adopting empathic listening, David's social life transformed. At parties, people sought him out, not because he was entertaining them, because they felt heard by him. At work, his colleagues started asking his opinion, not because he'd become smarter, because he'd demonstrated he valued theirs first. On dates, conversations became 2-way exchanges. He asked questions, he listened to answers, he followed curiosity. Women went from making excuses to suggesting second dates. His manager pulled him aside. "I don't know what's changed, David, but you've become one of our best collaborators. People want you on their teams." What changed was simple. David stopped trying to be interesting and started being interested. The listening hierarchy. Here's what David learned about the levels of listening. Level 0, not listening. Physically present but mentally absent. Level 1, selective listening. Hearing what confirms your existing thoughts, ignoring the rest. Level 2, attentive listening. Hearing all the words but not processing emotion or meaning. Level 3, empathic listening. Understanding content, emotion, and deeper meaning. Level 4, generative listening. Not just understanding, but creating space for the other person to discover insights through being heard. Most people operate at level 1 or 2. Elite performers operate at level 3 and 4. At level 4, you're not just receiving information. You're helping the other person think more clearly by giving them the space and attention to process out loud. This is why the best coaches, therapists, and leaders are exceptional listeners. They create space for others to access their own wisdom. Elite versus average. The listening divide. Average people listen to respond. Elite performers listen to understand. Average people interrupt. Elite performers use strategic pauses. Average people turn every topic back to themselves. Elite performers follow the other person's thread. Average people offer unsolicited advice. Elite performers ask if advice is wanted. Average people fill every silence. Elite performers recognize that silence is where insight emerges. Here's the paradox. By talking less, you become more influential. By making others feel heard, you become unforgettable. Your turn. The listening challenge for the next week. Practice the empathic listening system. Conversation 1. Use the 70-30 rule. Speak only 30% of the time. Notice how much more you learn. Conversation 2. Practice the 3-second pause. Before responding, wait 3 full seconds. Notice how it changes the depth. Conversation 3. Use reflective listening at level 3. Reflect back not just content but meaning. Notice how people respond. Conversation 4. Ask open-ended questions and then genuinely listen. What's the most interesting challenge you're working on? Then follow their answer with curiosity, not your own stories. Conversation 5. Resist the urge to give advice. When someone shares a problem, ask, "What are you thinking of doing?" Instead of telling them what to do, track what happens. Notice how people treat you differently when they feel genuinely heard. The permission to be quiet. Here's what David wants you to know. You don't need to be the most interesting person in the room. You need to be the most interested. You don't need to have the best stories. You need to care about others' stories. You don't need to dominate conversations. You need to create space in conversations. Your charisma doesn't come from your wit, your knowledge, or your experiences. It comes from your presence, your attention, your genuine interest in the humans around you. This is especially powerful if you're an introvert. You naturally prefer listening to performing. You naturally prefer depth to breadth. This secret is your home territory. But even if you're an extrovert like David, learning to listen transforms you from entertaining to unforgettable. What's next? You've now learned 6 secrets. You can manage anxiety, create deep conversation, leverage introversion, master digital presence, command vocal authority, listen empathically. But here's the question. How do you compress all of this into a first impression? How do you become memorable in the first 7 seconds of meeting someone? Because the truth is, people decide whether you're worth remembering in less time than it takes to order coffee. In the next chapter, you're going to learn the final secret, the one that brings everything together. Aisha Thompson's transformation from completely forgettable to, wait, you're that Aisha. You're going to discover the neuroscience of memory formation, the memorable trifecta, specific, sincere, unexpected. The pattern interrupts that make you impossible to forget, and then we'll integrate all 7 secrets. Show you the 30-day transformation roadmap. Address the fear of being fake. Give you the framework to become unforgettable. Because here's the truth. You've done the work. You've learned the system. Now you need to become the kind of person who walks into a room and immediately becomes the person everyone remembers. Not through manipulation, not through performance, through intentional, authentic presence. Let's master first impressions and bring everything together. Your unforgettable life starts with the next conversation. Integration, first impressions and forever. Impact, your charisma integration. You've mastered the anxiety response. You create depth in conversations. You leverage your introversion strategically. Your digital presence is optimized. Your voice carries authority. You listen with genuine empathy. But here's the uncomfortable truth. None of it matters if people forget you 5 minutes after you leave the room. In this final chapter, you're going to learn how to become unforgettable. Not through gimmicks, not through being loud or unusual, through intentional presence that creates lasting neural imprints in other people's memories. And you're going to discover how all 7 secrets integrate into a complete system. A transformation that doesn't just change your conversations, it changes your life. Let's start with the person who proved that being memorable is a learnable skill. Secret 7. Unforgettable. First impressions. Aisha's story. The forgettable professional Aisha Thompson met hundreds of people every month. Literally hundreds. She was an HR coordinator at a fast-growing startup. New employee orientations, recruitment events, company gatherings, conference networking. She had conversations all day, every day. She was pleasant, friendly, professional, perfectly competent at her job, and nobody remembered her. She'd have a 20-minute conversation with someone. Exchange business cards, connect on LinkedIn, then see them a week later and watch them search their memory trying to place her face. We met at the recruitment event. I helped you with the paperwork. We talked about your background. Oh, right. Sorry, I meet so many people. It stung every time. Not because Aisha had a huge ego, but because being forgettable made her job harder. How do you build relationships when people can't remember who you are? She watched her colleagues command attention effortlessly. People remembered them after brief interactions, asked for them by name, built networks that advanced their careers. Aisha was working twice as hard for half the results. Because she was pleasant but generic, friendly but unmemorable, professional but forgettable. Her breaking point came at a company party. She'd had a 15-minute conversation with the VP of engineering about his daughter's college search, a topic she knew well. 2 weeks later, he introduced himself to her like they'd never met. She felt invisible, like she was a background character in her own life. Maybe you've felt this. That frustration when people don't remember meeting you. That disappointment when you have to reintroduce yourself multiple times. That sense that you're somehow not leaving an impression. Here's what Aisha learned. Being memorable isn't about being extraordinary. It's about being intentional. The neuroscience of memory formation. Your brain processes thousands of interactions daily. It can't store everything, so it filters ruthlessly. What gets remembered? Anything that activates the hippocampus strongly enough to encode into long-term memory. What activates the hippocampus? 3 things: novelty, emotional significance, and personal relevance. Generic interactions don't trigger memory formation. They're processed and discarded. Pleasant person I talk to doesn't create a strong enough neural signature to stick. But specific, emotionally resonant, personally relevant interactions, those create lasting memories. This is why you remember someone who made you laugh genuinely, but forget the 10 people who smiled politely. Why you remember the person who noticed something specific about you, but forget the people who asked generic questions. Elite performers understand. Memorable isn't about being perfect or impressive. It's about creating distinctiveness in the flood of sameness. Aisha learned this from a memory researcher who attended one of her recruitment events. He taught her the memorable trifecta. The memorable trifecta. Specific, sincere, unexpected, element 1. Specific beats generic every time. Generic. Nice to meet you. How are you? Specific. The presentation you gave on data privacy, the point about user consent architecture, was something I'd never considered that way. Generic compliments don't stick. Specific observations do. Because specific signals that you actually paid attention, Aisha started practicing specificity. Instead of nice dress, she'd say, that color brings out your eyes. Is that teal or cerulean? Instead of how's your day, she'd ask, what's the most interesting challenge you worked on this week? Specific questions and observations create neural tags. They're easier to remember because they're distinctive. Element 2, sincerity beats performance. People's brains are remarkably accurate at detecting authenticity. Mirror neurons pick up microsignals, facial expressions, vocal tone, body language. Your brain knows when someone is genuinely present versus performing interest. Fake enthusiasm is worse than no enthusiasm. It creates cognitive dissonance. Something feels off, even if the listener can't articulate what. Aisha learned to only say things she actually meant. If she didn't have something specific and sincere to say, she'd ask a genuine question instead. Better to be curious than to be fake. Element 3. Unexpected creates pattern interrupts. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine. When interactions follow predictable scripts, they blend together. Expected. What do you do? Where are you from? How do you know the host? Unexpected. What's something you're excited about right now? If you could change one thing about your industry, what would it be? Pattern interrupts force attention. They break the automatic processing and create active engagement. Active engagement creates memories. Aisha started opening conversations with unexpected but genuine questions. Not weird questions, just questions that required thought instead of autopilot answers. The responses changed immediately. People leaned in. They gave real answers. They remembered her. The 7-second window research shows people form first impressions in 7 seconds or less. 7 seconds to be catalogued as memorable or forgettable. Most people waste those 7 seconds on generic greetings and small talk. Elite performers use them strategically. Aisha learned the 7-second formula, seconds 1 through 3. Warm, genuine smile while making eye contact. This signals safety and openness. Your brain processes facial expressions faster than words. Seconds 4 through 5. Firm handshake or appropriate greeting with full presence. Not aggressive, not limp. Confident and warm. Seconds 6 through 7. Specific opening that shows attention. I noticed you're reading book title. How are you finding it? Or your question during the panel was insightful. What made you think of that? 7 seconds. That's all you need to shift from forgettable to memorable. But here's the key. This only works if you genuinely care. If you're checking a box, people feel it. If you're actually interested, people feel that too. Aisha's transformation from generic to you're that Aisha. 4 months after learning the memorable trifecta, Aisha's professional life transformed. At a recruitment fair, she met a candidate named Marcus. Instead of the standard pitch, she noticed his resume included volunteer work with refugee resettlement. She asked about it, he lit up. They talked for 10 minutes about immigration policy and community building. 3 weeks later, Marcus mentioned to a colleague that the HR person at that company, Aisha, she was incredible, actually cared about people, not just filling positions. At a conference, instead of collecting 50 business cards, Aisha had 5 meaningful conversations. With each person, she found something specific to notice. Asked questions that required thought, followed genuine curiosity. 2 months later, 3 of those 5 people reached out. Remember me? We talked about specific topic. I'd love to continue that conversation. Her VP of engineering ran into her at a coffee shop. Aisha, hey, how's your nephew's college search going? He remembered, because she'd been memorable. The difference wasn't that she'd become more impressive, she'd become more intentional. Elite versus average. The memory divide. Average people try to meet everyone. Elite performers try to connect meaningfully with the right people. Average people give generic compliments. Elite performers make specific observations. Average people follow conversational scripts. Elite performers create pattern interrupts. Average people perform enthusiasm. Elite performers express genuine interest. Average people are forgettable because they're predictable. Elite performers are memorable because they're intentionally present. Integration, how all 7 secrets work together. Now you see how the complete system functions. Secret 1. Social anxiety solution gives you the calm confidence to be present in the first place. You can't be memorable if you're trapped in your anxiety fog. Secret 2. Deep talk. Blueprint transforms small talk into genuine connection. Memorable people don't waste time on surface interactions. Secret 3. Introvert advantage means you're naturally selective, which creates higher quality impressions. Depth over breadth makes you unforgettable. Secret 4. Digital age connection ensures you're memorable online and in person. Your presence transcends medium. Secret 5. Vocal authority. Formula means your voice carries the warmth and power that makes people want to listen and remember. Secret 6. Empathic listening system makes others feel seen. People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. Secret 7. Unforgettable. First impressions creates the initial neural imprint that opens the door to all the other secrets. These aren't separate tactics. They're an integrated system. Each secret amplifies the others. The 30-day transformation roadmap. Here's your implementation plan. Week 1. Foundation. Master the 3-breath technique. Practice daily, not just in stressful moments. Reframe anxiety as activation energy. Start using the 70-30 listening ratio in every conversation. Week 2. Depth. Implement the deep talk blueprint. Ask better questions. Follow curiosity. Have 3 conversations where you deliberately avoid small talk. Practice the selective energy strategy if you're an introvert. Week 3. Presence. Optimize your digital setup. Fix camera angle, lighting, background. Record yourself speaking. Practice the 5 vocal elements. Pitch variation, pace variation, strategic pauses, power, warmth. Update your LinkedIn headline. Week 4. Integration. Practice the memorable trifecta in every new interaction. Be specific. Be sincere. Create pattern interrupts. Use the 7-second formula for first impressions. Integrate empathic listening with intentional memorability. Track your results. Notice how people respond differently. Notice how you feel more confident, more connected, more remembered, addressing the authenticity. Question. I know what you're thinking. If I'm using all these techniques, aren't I being fake? Here's the truth. You're already performing every day. When you shrink yourself to avoid standing out, that's a performance. When you force enthusiasm you don't feel, that's a performance. When you smile through exhaustion, that's a performance. The difference is those performances don't serve you. They exhaust you. They create distance between your authentic self and your external presentation. The techniques in this audiobook aren't about creating a false persona. They're about removing the barriers between who you really are and how people experience you. You're not becoming someone else. You're becoming more skillful at being yourself. Think about it this way. A concert pianist uses specific techniques. Finger positioning, breathing, posture. Does that make their performance fake? No. It makes their authentic musicality accessible to the audience. Your charisma is the same. The techniques aren't the performance. They're the skills that let your authentic self shine through clearly. Sarah isn't faking confidence. She's managing her nervous system so her real intelligence can emerge. Marcus isn't faking depth. He's creating space for genuine connection. Priya isn't faking presence. She's strategically deploying her natural strengths. You're not learning to be someone else. You're learning to be powerfully, effectively, memorably yourself. The truth about transformation. Here's what the past hour and 45 minutes have really been about. Not tricks, not manipulation, not becoming someone you're not. Understanding your neurology so you can work with it instead of against it. Learning frameworks that amplify your natural strengths. Developing skills that make your authentic presence accessible to others. You've always had charisma. You just didn't know how to access it consistently. Now you do. You know how to redirect anxiety into energy. How to create depth instead of settling for surface. How to weaponize introversion rather than apologize for it. How to translate your presence across digital platforms. How to use your voice as an instrument. How to make others feel heard. How to become unforgettable. 7 secrets. 1 integrated system. Complete transformation. Your unforgettable life starts now. You've done something most people never do. You've invested time in becoming better, not just at communication, at being human in a world that's forgotten how to connect. You now have tools that most people will never learn. Knowledge that changes everything if you use it. A system that transforms lives if you implement it. But here's what matters most. You have to actually do this. Reading is not enough. Understanding is not enough. You have to practice, implement, iterate. Fail sometimes. Learn. Get better. Average people consume information and do nothing. Elite performers use information and transform. The choice is yours. You can go back to feeling invisible in conversations, watching less talented people get ahead, wondering why your ideas don't land, feeling that familiar social exhaustion. Or you can become the person who walks into rooms with quiet confidence, who creates genuine connections in minutes, who people remember weeks later, who influences without manipulation, who feels like themselves in every interaction. You can become unforgettable, not through being perfect, not through being the loudest or most impressive, through being intentionally, skillfully, authentically present. Sarah did it. Marcus did it. Priya did it. Jake did it. Elena did it. David did it. Aisha did it. You can too. Your transformation doesn't end here. It begins here. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Every interaction is a chance to implement. Every day is progress toward the person you're becoming, the person you've always been. Underneath the anxiety and the bad advice and the social conditioning, the magnetic, authentic, unforgettable version of you. Welcome to your unforgettable life. Now go live it.